Ambassador Zethkari clicked his mandibles in amusement as he watched the human delegation enter the Galactic Council chambers. The bipedal creatures walked with what they called confidence, but to the seasoned Veltar diplomat, they looked like children pretending to be adults. Their soft pink skin, tiny teeth, and round eyes made them appear harmless and frankly adorable. "Look at them," whispered Council Member Hrixtal, her crystalline form shimmering with barely contained laughter. "They waddle when they walk. How did such creatures ever develop spaceflight?" The human ambassador, a female named Sarah Chen, stepped forward with her small entourage. Behind her walked several other humans, each carrying what appeared to be primitive data tablets. Zethkari had studied human anatomy extensively, and he knew they were among the weakest species in the galaxy. No natural armor, no claws, no venomous stings, no acid spit. They were prey animals that somehow learned to use tools. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Sarah began, her voice surprisingly steady despite the obvious intimidation she must have felt. "We come before you today to request membership in the Galactic Federation. Humanity brings unique perspectives and abilities to our shared galaxy." A rumbling laugh echoed through the chamber from Warlord Krex, whose massive Thurian frame dwarfed even the largest humans. "Unique abilities? Your species has no natural weapons, no armor plating, no psionic powers. You cannot even survive in most planetary atmospheres without artificial aids. What could you possibly offer us?" Sarah's companion, a dark-skinned man named Marcus Thompson, stepped forward with one of their data devices. "If I may demonstrate some of our companions?" The council members exchanged glances. This should be entertaining. Most species brought their finest warriors or most advanced technology to these meetings. What could humans possibly show that would impress anyone? Marcus activated his device, and a holographic projection filled the center of the chamber. The first image showed a small, furry creature with large eyes and tiny paws. It appeared to be sleeping in a patch of sunlight. "This is a domestic cat," Marcus explained. "They are one of humanity's oldest companions." The council erupted in barely suppressed laughter. Hrixtal's crystalline surface actually cracked from her amusement. "You bring us pets? Creatures that appear even more helpless than yourselves?" The next projection showed an even smaller creature, covered in soft brown fur with a wet black nose and floppy ears. It was chasing its own tail in circles. "A puppy," Sarah said, her voice remaining calm despite the mockery around her. "Young canines are particularly beloved by our children." Zethkari could barely contain himself. These humans were either incredibly naive or completely insane. Did they think showing cute animals would somehow impress the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy? The Veltar had conquered 17 star systems through superior weaponry and tactical brilliance. The Thurians had enslaved entire species with their brute strength. The crystalline Shixhai could manipulate matter at the molecular level, and humans brought puppies. "Perhaps," Warlord Krex rumbled, his voice dripping with condescension. "You should return when your species has evolved some actual survival capabilities. The galaxy is not a safe place for such delicate creatures." But Sarah Chen did not retreat. Instead, she nodded to Marcus, who switched to another projection. This time, the image showed a larger canine, its golden fur gleaming in sunlight as it played with a small human child. The animal's tail wagged enthusiastically as the child threw a stick, which the creature eagerly retrieved. "This is a golden retriever," Sarah continued. "They are known for their loyalty and gentle nature with children. Many humans consider them family members." The Galactic Council had seen enough. These humans were clearly delusional if they thought cute animals would earn them respect in a galaxy where strength determined survival. Several council members were already preparing to dismiss the human delegation when something unexpected happened. A new figure appeared in the chamber entrance. It was another human, this one wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. Behind him walked a creature unlike any the council had seen before. It moved with fluid grace, its gray and white fur rippling over obvious muscle. Its eyes held an intelligence that seemed almost calculating. The new human, who introduced himself as Colonel James Morrison, approached the council with measured steps. The creature beside him moved in perfect sync, its ears erect and alert. Unlike the soft, cuddly animals shown in the previous projections, this one radiated something that made even the veteran warriors in the council slightly uneasy. "Council members," Colonel Morrison began, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. "Allow me to introduce my partner, Luna. She is a wolf." The word meant nothing to the assembled aliens, but something about the creature's bearing suggested this was different from the harmless pets they had just observed. Luna's yellow eyes swept the chamber, seeming to assess each council member in turn. When her gaze settled on Warlord Krex, the massive Thurian actually shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Wolves," Morrison continued, "are the ancestors of all domestic dogs. They are pack hunters, capable of taking down prey many times their own size through coordination and intelligence. They have been humanity's companions for over 15,000 Earth years." Zethkari found himself studying the wolf more carefully. Unlike the rounded, soft features of the cats and dogs, this creature possessed sharp angles and predatory grace. Its teeth, when briefly visible, were considerably more impressive than those of its domesticated descendants. "But surely," Hrixtal interjected, her amusement now tinged with uncertainty, "this is still just an animal. What relevance does it have to galactic politics?" Morrison smiled, and for the first time the humans in the chamber didn't look quite so harmless. "Luna here has been trained in military operations. She can track enemies across vast distances, detect explosives that our most advanced sensors miss, and coordinate with human soldiers in combat situations that would challenge our best AI systems." As if on cue, Luna tilted her head and released a low sound that wasn't quite a bark or a growl. It was something deeper, more primal. The sound seemed to resonate in the chamber in ways that made several council members unconsciously check their defensive systems. "The cute creatures you've seen," Sarah Chen said, her voice now carrying a new confidence, "represent thousands of years of partnership between humans and other species. We don't just coexist with animals. We form bonds that make us stronger than either species could be alone." Marcus activated his projector again, this time showing images of humans working alongside various animals, search and rescue teams with dogs finding survivors in disaster zones, police officers with canine partners detecting contraband that sophisticated scanners missed, military units where humans and dogs moved as single coordinated entities. "But they're still just animals," Warlord Krex protested, though his voice lacked its earlier certainty. "They have no technology, no advanced weapons." Colonel Morrison nodded. "True. But they have something that technology can't replicate. Instincts honed by millions of years of evolution. Luna can sense fear, detect deception, and identify threats that our most advanced AI cannot. She doesn't need weapons when she can predict an enemy's actions before they've fully formed the thought." The council chamber had grown quiet. The earlier laughter and mockery had faded as the implications of what they were seeing began to sink in. These humans had somehow formed genuine partnerships with predatory species, not domestication, partnership. "May I demonstrate?" Morrison asked. Without waiting for permission, he gave Luna a subtle hand signal. The wolf immediately moved to the far side of the chamber, her movements silent despite the hard floor. She positioned herself near the main entrance, effectively cutting off the primary exit route. Another signal, and Luna vanished. Not literally. She had simply found shadows and angles that made her nearly invisible to the watching aliens. Only her yellow eyes remained visible, and they tracked every movement in the chamber. Luna is now in hunting position, Morrison explained casually. If this were a combat situation, she could remain hidden for hours, waiting for the optimal moment to strike. She can communicate our location to other wolves across vast distances, coordinate ambush tactics, and adapt to changing circumstances faster than most military computers. Zethkari realized with growing unease that he had completely lost sight of the wolf. His enhanced Veltar vision, capable of detecting movement across multiple spectrums, couldn't locate the creature. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist. "Where is she?" he asked, unable to keep a slight tremor from his voice. Morrison smiled again. "Everywhere and nowhere. That's the point. Luna doesn't rely on technology that can be hacked, jammed, or disabled. She uses senses and instincts that have been perfected over evolutionary timescales. She's reading the pheromones of every being in this chamber, cataloging stress levels, identifying potential threats, and calculating the most efficient response to any aggressive action." A low growl emanated from somewhere in the chamber, though its source remained invisible. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once, suggesting the wolf had moved to a position with optimal acoustics. "Recall your animal," Rixtal demanded, her crystalline form flickering with what might have been nervousness. Morrison gave another subtle signal, and Luna materialized beside him as if she had been there all along. Her yellow eyes remained alert, and her body language suggested she was still ready for action despite the apparent stand-down. "The cute creatures you mocked," Sarah Chen said, addressing the now silent council, "represent humanity's greatest strength. We don't conquer other species, we befriend them. We don't enslave them, we form partnerships, and those partnerships make us far more formidable than our individual capabilities might suggest." The chamber remained quiet as the council members processed this information. The humans had just demonstrated something unprecedented in galactic politics. They had shown a level of interspecies cooperation that went far beyond anything previously encountered. Warlord Krex was the first to break the silence. "This wolf, it is intelligent?" "Highly intelligent," Morrison confirmed. "Wolves have complex social structures, communication systems, and problem-solving abilities. They can plan multi-stage hunts, adapt to new environments, and form lasting emotional bonds. But their intelligence is different from ours. It's intuitive, instinctive, perfectly adapted for survival." "And you claim partnership with such creatures?" Zethkari asked. "Not just wolves," Sarah replied. "Humans have formed working relationships with hundreds of species on our world. Each brings different strengths, different perspectives. Together we've accomplished things that none of us could achieve alone." The implications were staggering. If humans could form genuine partnerships with predatory species, what might they be capable of when working with other intelligent species? The Galactic Council had built their power through conquest and intimidation. Humans suggested an entirely different approach. "You said wolves were the ancestors of dogs?" Rixtal asked. "Yes," Marcus answered. "Through thousands of generations of partnership, wolves became our most loyal companions. But they retained their essential nature, their intelligence, their loyalty, their protective instincts." Luna, as if understanding the conversation, moved to Morrison's side and sat, her eyes never leaving the assembled council members. Even at rest, she radiated an alertness that suggested instant readiness for action. The demonstration had achieved something the humans probably hadn't expected. They had transformed the Council's perception from seeing them as weak and harmless to recognizing them as potentially dangerous in ways that traditional military analysis couldn't predict or counter. These humans didn't just use tools. They formed alliances. They didn't just domesticate animals. They created partnerships that enhanced both species. And if they could do that with wolves, what might they accomplish with advanced alien species? The first part of the human demonstration was complete, but Zethkari suspected this was only the beginning of a much larger revelation. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 days after the human demonstration. Word of the wolf encounter had spread throughout the council chambers, creating an undercurrent of unease among species that had never questioned their superiority over the newcomer humans. Zethkari found himself studying intelligence reports about Earth with new interest. The files painted a picture far more complex than their initial assessments had suggested. Humans hadn't simply evolved alongside other species. They had actively shaped the evolution of dozens of creatures through selective breeding and partnership. "The implications are disturbing," Admiral Kextor reported to the assembled military leaders. The scarred Thurian had lost 3 limbs in the conquest of the Helix sector, making him one of their most experienced combat veterans. Human military doctrine appears to integrate biological assets in ways we've never encountered. The holographic display showed footage gathered by their intelligence networks, human soldiers working in perfect coordination with various canine breeds, each apparently specialized for different combat roles. Large, muscular dogs that could drag wounded soldiers to safety under fire. Smaller, agile breeds that could navigate ventilation systems and plant surveillance devices. Medium-sized dogs with enhanced sensory capabilities that could detect enemies hiding in cover. "They call them military working dogs," Admiral Kextor continued, "but the tactical applications go far beyond simple animal training. These creatures demonstrate problem-solving abilities, adaptive responses to changing battlefield conditions, and most concerning of all, emotional bonds with human soldiers that enhance performance for both species." Council member Vixtal, representing the technologically advanced Nexari collective, projected her own analysis. "We've monitored their global communication networks. The emotional attachment humans form with these animals appears genuine and universal across their species. They mourn the death of working animals, celebrate their achievements, and incorporate them into family units." This revelation had shaken the Council more than they cared to admit. Most galactic species viewed other creatures as resources to be exploited, enemies to be destroyed, or irrelevant life forms to be ignored. The concept of genuine emotional bonds with non-sapient species was almost incomprehensible. "Perhaps," suggested diplomat Iren Hai from the Christek Federation, "we underestimated the psychological implications of this bonding behavior. If humans can form such attachments to animals, their loyalty to allies might prove unprecedented." The chamber fell silent as this possibility sank in. Galactic politics operated on constantly shifting alliances based on immediate tactical advantage. Species betrayed former allies whenever better opportunities arose. Treaties lasted only as long as they remained beneficial to the stronger party. But humans had demonstrated 15,000-year partnerships with creatures that offered no technological advancement, no territorial gain, no obvious strategic benefit beyond companionship and cooperation. If they could maintain such loyalty to animals, what might they offer to alien allies? "There's more," Admiral Kextor announced grimly. "Our analysts have identified what they term combat multipliers in human-animal partnerships. A single human soldier with a trained canine partner demonstrates effectiveness ratios equivalent to 3 or 4 soldiers operating independently." The tactical implications were staggering. Human military forces might be significantly more capable than initial assessments suggested, not because of superior technology or physical capabilities, but because of interspecies cooperation that enhanced both partners beyond their individual limitations. "We need to understand the extent of these partnerships," Zethkari declared. "Schedule another meeting with the human delegation, but this time we ask the questions." 2 days later, the council reconvened with a very different atmosphere. The humans entered the chamber with the same apparent confidence, but now the aliens viewed them through a lens of cautious respect, rather than amused condescension. Sarah Chen took her position at the center of the chamber, flanked by Colonel Morrison and Luna. The wolf's presence had a noticeably different effect this time, where before she had seemed like an interesting curiosity, she now represented something potentially dangerous and certainly unpredictable. Ambassador Chen, Zethkari began formally, the Council has reviewed your initial presentation. We have questions about the nature of human-animal relationships. We're happy to provide clarification, Sarah replied diplomatically. You claim these partnerships enhance military capabilities, Admiral Kextor stated bluntly. Demonstrate this enhancement. Colonel Morrison stepped forward. Council members, what you witnessed with Luna was merely basic reconnaissance positioning. Would you like to see actual tactical coordination? Without waiting for an answer, Morrison activated a communication device. Within minutes, 2 additional humans entered the chamber, each accompanied by a different type of dog. One was a massive, thick-coated animal that moved with surprising grace despite its size. The other was smaller, lean, with alert eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of their surroundings. This is Sergeant Rodriguez with Thor, a German Shepherd, Morrison introduced, and Corporal Kim with Ace, a Belgian Malinois. Together we represent a standard reconnaissance patrol unit. The 3 humans spread out across the chamber while their canine partners took positions that seemed random but gradually revealed themselves as strategically optimal. Each dog maintained visual contact with its human partner while also covering different sectors of the chamber. Council Member Rixtal, Morrison called out, would you be willing to move to the far corner of the chamber? The crystalline being complied, her form shimmering as she relocated. Instantly, all 3 dogs shifted position, maintaining their coverage pattern while adapting to the new variable in their environment. Now, what if someone were to enter the chamber with hostile intent? Morrison asked. Before anyone could object to the theoretical scenario, Luna released a barely audible whimper. The other 2 dogs immediately turned toward the main entrance, their body language shifting from alert to ready for action. Seconds later, a council security officer entered the chamber, responding to a routine schedule check. All 3 dogs had detected his approach before any of the aliens' technological sensors had registered the movement. Combined sensory range of approximately 300 meters in all directions, Morrison explained casually. Ability to distinguish between friendly and potentially hostile individuals based on factors your sensors can't detect. Stress pheromones, aggressive body language, concealed weapons that don't register on metal detectors. Sergeant Rodriguez added, Thor here can track a specific individual across varied terrain for days, even if that person attempts to mask their scent trail. Ace can detect explosive residues in concentrations so small your molecular scanners would miss them. But the most impressive demonstration was yet to come. Morrison gave a complex series of hand signals to Luna, who immediately moved to a specific position near the chamber's secondary exit. Without any apparent communication, Thor and Ace also moved, creating a triangular formation that covered all possible escape routes from the chamber. Coordinated movement without technological communication, Morrison noted. Each dog reads the other's positions and intentions through body language, scent markers, and pack dynamics developed over thousands of generations. They can maintain this coordination even under combat stress, in adverse weather, or when separated by significant distances. The demonstration continued with increasingly complex scenarios. The 3-dog teams showed their ability to adapt to changing conditions, coordinate search patterns, and respond to threats in ways that seemed to anticipate problems before they fully developed. But surely, Council Member Vixtal interjected, advanced AI systems could replicate these capabilities with greater reliability. Corporal Kim smiled. AI systems can be hacked, jammed, or disabled by electromagnetic pulses. They require power sources, maintenance, and regular updates. Ace here runs on dog food and water. His operating system has been tested and refined by evolution over millions of years. He doesn't crash. He doesn't require software patches, and he's emotionally invested in my survival. The emotional component proved to be the factor that most disturbed the council members. These weren't just trained animals following programmed responses. They demonstrated genuine concern for their human partners, creative problem-solving when standard procedures failed, and initiative that went beyond mere obedience. "You mentioned other species partnerships," Zethkari prompted. Sarah Chen activated her projector again, this time showing images that expanded the scope of human-animal cooperation far beyond military applications. Dolphins working with human marine biologists to study ocean ecosystems. Horses carrying human partners across terrain where vehicles couldn't operate. Birds of prey assisting in search and rescue operations across vast wilderness areas. Each species brings different capabilities, she explained. Dolphins can navigate underwater environments and communicate across vast distances using echolocation. Horses provide mobility and companionship in environments where technology fails. Birds offer aerial reconnaissance and can access areas completely inaccessible to ground-based teams. But the most significant revelation came when she showed footage of human settlements, where multiple species work together in complex integrated systems. Farms where dogs protected livestock while cats controlled pest populations. Cities where pigeons carried messages through areas where electronic communication was impossible. Research stations where various animals contributed different types of environmental monitoring. "The key insight," Sarah continued, "is that we don't try to replace natural capabilities with technology. We enhance them. A dog's sense of smell is already superior to any artificial sensor we've developed, so we train dogs to use their natural abilities for human purposes. We don't make them less than they are. We make them partners in achieving more than either species could accomplish alone." Admiral Kextor leaned forward in his seat. "And you apply this philosophy to potential alien alliances?" "Absolutely," Sarah replied without hesitation. "Every species has unique strengths developed through their evolutionary history and cultural development. Rather than trying to dominate or diminish those strengths, we believe in finding ways to combine them for mutual benefit." The chamber erupted in quiet murmurs as council members processed this radically different approach to interspecies relations. The galactic standard involved either conquest or careful balance of power. Humans proposed something unprecedented, genuine cooperation that enhanced all participants. "But what about conflicting interests?" Diplomat Irenhai asked. "What happens when partnership goals diverge?" Colonel Morrison answered, "In 15,000 years of partnership with wolves and dogs, we've learned that genuine partnership requires mutual benefit. When human and canine needs conflict, we find solutions that work for both species. Sometimes that means accepting limitations. Sometimes it means finding creative alternatives. But it never means sacrificing one partner for the other's benefit." Luna, as if understanding the conversation, moved to Morrison's side and leaned against his leg. The gesture was subtle, but unmistakable. A display of trust and affection that went far beyond mere professional cooperation. "That's the foundation of every successful partnership we've developed," Sarah added. "Mutual respect, shared benefit, and genuine emotional investment in each other's well-being." The demonstration concluded with the 3 human-dog teams performing one final coordination exercise. Moving through the chamber like dancers following an unheard rhythm, they showed the kind of seamless integration that could only come from deep trust and understanding. As the humans prepared to leave, Zethkari found himself viewing them with a mixture of respect and uncertainty. They had challenged every assumption about interspecies relations that had governed galactic politics for millennia. But questions remained. If humans could form such partnerships with non-sapient species, what might they accomplish with intelligent aliens? And perhaps more concerning, what would happen to species that chose to remain enemies rather than partners with humans? The Council would need time to consider these implications, but one thing was becoming clear. Humanity represented something entirely new in galactic politics, something that might prove more powerful than any traditional military force. 6 months had passed since humanity's application for Galactic Federation membership, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Zerath Dominion, a militaristic empire that had terrorized the Outer Rim territories for decades, had made a critical miscalculation. They had attacked a human research station. Ambassador Zethkari received the emergency transmission while reviewing trade agreements in his private chambers. The message was brief but carried implications that sent a chill through his chitinous exoskeleton. The Zerath had interpreted humanity's peaceful overtures as weakness, their animal partnerships as primitive technology, and their diplomatic approach as evidence of military incompetence. They were about to discover how wrong they had been. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from the frontier sectors. The Zerath assault fleet had expected to overwhelm a lightly defended research facility and claim its advanced biotechnology for their empire. Instead, they had encountered something completely outside their tactical understanding. Initial reports are confusing, Admiral Kextor admitted, his scarred features betraying unusual uncertainty. The human research station wasn't defended by conventional military units. Instead, they deployed what they termed biodefense teams. The holographic display showed footage captured by long-range sensors from the battle zone. What the Council saw challenged every assumption about warfare they had ever held. The Zerath had sent a full planetary assault force, 300 heavily armed warriors supported by advanced combat mechs and orbital bombardment capabilities. They had expected to face human soldiers with standard energy weapons and defensive barriers. Instead, they encountered something that seemed to emerge from the planet's wilderness itself. The first wave of Zerath forces had landed successfully, establishing a perimeter around the research facility. Their thermal scanners detected human life signs inside the complex, along with numerous smaller heat signatures they had dismissed as indigenous wildlife. That dismissal proved to be a fatal error. The assault began normally, Admiral Kextor continued, studying the tactical recordings with growing bewilderment. Zerath forces advanced on the facility using standard suppression tactics. Then, the environment itself seemed to turn against them. The recording showed Zerath warriors suddenly stumbling, their precision movements becoming erratic. Within minutes, half the assault force was experiencing difficulties that had nothing to do with human weapons fire. They had been exposed to airborne compounds, reported Council Member Vixtal, her technological analysis capabilities struggling to interpret the data. But not chemical weapons in any conventional sense. These were naturally occurring substances that the humans had somehow encouraged. The truth gradually emerged through careful analysis of the battlefield recordings. The research station hadn't been defended by human soldiers alone. It had been defended by an entire ecosystem that had been carefully cultivated to work in partnership with the human researchers. Specially bred wasps released pheromones that caused severe disorientation in Zerath nervous systems. Modified fungi released spores that clogged their breathing apparatus. Even the local plant life had been enhanced to produce compounds that interfered with Zerath technology. But the most devastating element of the defense had been the wolves. 57 canine units, Admiral Kextor reported grimly. Various breeds, each apparently specialized for different tactical roles. They moved through the battlefield like nothing we've seen before. The recordings showed scenes that would haunt Zerath military leadership for generations. Wolves emerging from seemingly empty terrain to attack isolated warriors with surgical precision, pack coordination that allowed small groups to overwhelm superior numbers through perfect timing and positioning. And most disturbing of all, clear evidence of real-time adaptation to Zerath tactics. "They learned," Vixtal whispered, her crystalline form flickering with something approaching fear. During the battle, they observed Zerath movement patterns and adjusted their own strategies accordingly. Colonel Morrison, who had been present as a council observer since humanity's application, stood to address the assembly. The research station was staffed by xenobiologists studying adaptive symbiosis between species. When the Zerath attacked, they weren't just facing human defenders. They were facing an integrated ecosystem that had been developed specifically for defensive purposes. The implications were staggering. Humans hadn't just domesticated animals, they had created living weapon systems that combined the adaptive intelligence of multiple species with the strategic planning of human military doctrine. The wolves were the coordination element, Morrison explained. Each pack was linked to human tactical controllers through biochemical communication channels that Zerath sensors couldn't detect or intercept. But the wolves themselves made independent tactical decisions based on real-time battlefield conditions. Sarah Chen activated a new series of projections showing the aftermath of the Zerath assault. Of 300 elite warriors, fewer than 50 had escaped the planet. The rest had been systematically eliminated by an enemy they couldn't understand, predict, or effectively counter. But this was just one research station, Warlord Krex protested, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Surely the full Zerath fleet could overwhelm such defenses. Morrison's smile held no warmth. The research station was a small-scale test facility. Would you like to see what we've developed for planetary defense? Without waiting for permission, he activated a communication device. The chamber's main display connected to a feed from Earth's orbital monitoring system, showing a view of humanity's home world from space. At first, the planet appeared normally defended. Orbital stations, patrol craft, the standard elements of any civilized world's protection grid. But as the perspective shifted to show the planet's surface, the true scope of human defensive capabilities became apparent. Every continent showed evidence of the same integrated ecosystem approach demonstrated at the research station. Vast networks of plants, animals, and microorganisms had been cultivated to work in partnership with human military units. Forest systems that could conceal entire armies from orbital surveillance. Ocean ecosystems that could disable invading fleets through coordinated biological attacks. Even the planet's atmosphere had been subtly modified to support human defenders while hindering potential invaders. "We call it Gaia Defense," Sarah explained, named after an ancient human concept of the planet as a living organism. Every ecosystem on Earth has been enhanced to serve as part of our planetary immune system. The display showed training exercises where human soldiers worked alongside wolves, dolphins, eagles, and dozens of other species in coordinated maneuvers that blurred the line between military tactics and natural phenomena. Weather patterns that could be influenced to create tactical advantages. Migratory animal routes that served as early warning systems against approaching threats. Plant networks that could transmit information across vast distances faster than electronic communication. But the most important element, Morrison continued, is adaptability. Artificial defense systems can be analyzed, predicted, and countered. But living systems evolve, they learn, they develop new responses to new threats. To demonstrate this point, he showed recordings of recent military exercises where human forces had faced simulated alien invasion scenarios. In each case, the bio-defense systems had developed new countermeasures within days of encountering new enemy tactics. "The Zerath made a fundamental error," Sarah observed. They assumed that because our individual species appear weak by galactic standards, our collective capabilities would also be limited. They failed to understand that cooperation can create capabilities greater than the sum of individual parts. The chamber fell silent as the full implications of humanity's defensive philosophy became clear. This wasn't just about military capabilities, it was about a completely different approach to survival and power projection. The Zerath attack has forced us to accelerate our defense programs, Morrison announced. We're now prepared to offer our biodefense technologies to allied species through partnership agreements. Council member Rikstal's crystalline form brightened with sudden interest. Partnership agreements? Mutual defense pacts based on ecological integration, Sarah explained. We help allied species develop symbiotic relationships with their local ecosystems, creating defense networks that grow stronger over time rather than becoming obsolete. The offer represented a dramatic shift in galactic power dynamics. Traditional military technology required constant upgrades, massive industrial infrastructure, and vulnerability to technological countermeasures. Human biodefense systems offered evolutionary adaptability, sustainable resource requirements, and resistance to conventional military analysis. But what would humanity gain from such partnerships? Zethkari asked. Morrison's answer was immediate and comprehensive. Every species brings unique evolutionary adaptations and cultural insights. The Veltar have unparalleled sensory capabilities that could enhance our detection networks. The Thurian strength could be integrated with our coordination systems to create defensive capabilities neither species could achieve alone. The crystalline collective's matter manipulation abilities could revolutionize how we modify biological systems. The proposal wasn't conquest or domination. It was genuine partnership that would enhance all participants while creating defensive capabilities that no single species could match. And if species choose not to partner with humanity? Diplomat Irenhai asked carefully. Sarah's response was diplomatically neutral but carried unmistakable implications. We respect every species' right to self-determination, but recent events have shown that aggressive expansion against human territories carries significant risks. The footage from the Zerath defeat played silently in the background, serving as a powerful reminder of what happened to species that chose confrontation over cooperation. Over the following hours, the Council debated humanity's membership application with a new understanding of what humans brought to the galactic community. They offered not just military alliance, but evolutionary partnership that could transform how species related to each other and to their environments. The vote, when it finally came, was unprecedented in Council history. Not only did humanity receive unanimous approval for Federation membership, but 17 species immediately requested bilateral partnership agreements for biodefense development. As the session concluded, Zethkari found himself observing Luna, who had remained quietly alert throughout the proceedings. The wolf's yellow eyes seemed to hold a wisdom that transcended individual intelligence, the accumulated knowledge of millions of years of evolution, refined through thousands of years of partnership with humans. The Galactic Federation had just welcomed a species that didn't seek to dominate or diminish their partners, but to enhance them. A species that had turned cooperation itself into their greatest weapon and their most powerful defense. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in his long diplomatic career, Zethkari believed that change might be for the better. The age of human partnership had begun, and it promised to transform not just military doctrine, but the very nature of interspecies civilization. What had started with cute cats and loyal dogs had evolved into something that would reshape the galaxy itself. The aliens had indeed scoffed at humanity's cute creatures, but they would never make that mistake again.